the Sketlton Brothers. Now, the reason I'm going to talk about that is there has been some updates recently in this case. Now, these are obviously 3 little boys who went missing altogether and have been missing. We are tight in touch. Thank you, Stephanie, so much. So, this is a case of 3 little boys who all go missing together years ago. We're now at the point where we don't know where they are. Thank you, Shani. We do know that some recent updates have happened in this case. So when Tanya, their mother, Tanya's others, actually dropped her 3 sons off for Thanksgiving visitation with their father, John Sketlton, in 2010, she had no idea that she would never see any of her children again. The disappearance of Andrew, Alexander and Tanner Sketlton broke the hearts of an entire Michigan community. And more than a decade after they went missing, their fate still remains unknown. Now, Tanya had filed for divorce from John in September of 2010 after he took the 3 children on an unplanned trip to Florida where his mother lived, leaving her terrified. Now, Tanya was awarded full custody of the boys after the judge learnt that John had taken them out of state without permission, as was in the agreements. But she and John soon worked out a visitation schedule so he could still see his sons, because Tanya believed it was best for him to be in the boy's life, especially as, you know, the most important kind of role model in a child's life is the same-sex parent. And in this case, we know that that would be their father. Boys need a father. So, you know, that's not always, and I'm not saying that that needs to be, because it's not always the case. And single mums are bossing it out there every single day because they don't get a choice. But Tanya had agreed to allow the boys to spend Thanksgiving that year with John at the Morenci, Michigan home that they'd once lived in as a family that John had kept. And when she dropped them off on November the 24th, 2010, she told them she would see them 2 days later on Friday. Now, Tanya and John had planned to exchange the boys at 3 p.m. on Friday, but Tanya called him late that morning to see if she could pick them up earlier, because she had some plans that she wanted to do with family, and the family really wanted to see the boys as well. And John told her he had taken the boys to Jackson, Michigan, and wasn't sure what time he was going to be back. These are children. Have you got 100% evidence? Do you know what, Emma? You can actually just take your face for shit at this point. I'm going to be honest. These are children. This is a well-known case. Like, go and use Google, darling. So at this point, he's taken them to Jackson, Michigan. He says he's taken them to see some of his family. And Tanya's a little bit pissed off by this, because you've already been told that you're not supposed to be taking them on any kind of long distance travel or anywhere out of kind of the local area. And you've done it again. But at this point, Tanya knows, thank you, Mel, she wants her sons back, and she wants everything to go smoothly and the kids not to be affected by his mood. So she's like, okay, cool. So as she keeps calling him throughout the day, thank you, Lozzie, like most mothers would, she realises that he keeps changing his story. And then what he says next is truly terrifying. So he says to her, like, nah, I admit it, like, I'm at home, but the boys have gone out with someone I met on the internet. And she's like, what? And she's like, who? And he's like, someone I met on the internet. Like, he's just taking the boys out for a while. And she's like, are you for fucking real? Like, who? Where? What? Like, how do I get hold of them? So she's like, when is he bringing them back? And he said, I don't know. And then she goes, I'm coming over to the house right now. And if the boy's not there, I'm going to phone the police. And then he goes, well, I'm not at home. I'm in hospital. I tried to kill myself. And he is at the hospital because he's tried to hang himself. And he injured his leg as he falls down from the ceiling. So Tanya immediately calls the police, and she's like, he's in the hospital. He's tried to hang himself. The boys are missing. No one knows where they are. He said he took them to a stranger on the internet. And I can't even imagine at that point, as a mother, the fucking feeling of just everything is falling apart. Like, I don't know where these boys are. They are so beautiful. They're so young. And you're literally thinking, like, I don't even know if they're okay at this point. So John would eventually tell the police that he hadn't wanted the boys to be present when he unalived himself. Unable to wait the few hours before his visit with the boys was over, he had given the boys to a woman off the internet called Joanne Taylor. He claimed he'd met Joanne and her husband several years earlier when he was working as a truck driver, and they had broken down on the side of the road, and he had helped fix their car, and they had got to be friends. He said he had maintained an email relationship with them over all these years, and at one point, while he was talking to this couple, he decided, like, oh, Joanne would be a much better mother for these children. I'll give her the children. Now, investigators quickly determined that this woman, who John claimed lived in either Jackson or Hillsdale, which are both places in Michigan, did not exist. She absolutely did not exist. They found no evidence to suggest either Joanne or her husband were real people, it was readily apparent that John was lying again. He was changing his story. Now, officers immediately released an Amber Alert, and the Amber Alert said they were looking for 9-year-old Andrew, we'll go from this side to this side, 7-year-old Alexander, and 5-year-old Tanner. They believed the 3 children were in extreme danger, as if threats to life, and they also asked for anyone who had seen John's blue 2000 Dodge Caravan that Thursday or Friday to contact them. They were especially interested in determining his whereabouts from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. on Friday morning. And these boys are like the sweetest boys. They are literally, it just absolutely breaks your heart. From the beginning, the investigators did not believe that John had handed his children over to anyone. They noted the neighbours had seen 2 of the boys playing in John's back garden on Thursday afternoon, but there had been no sightings of the boys since. Officers immediately launched a massive search of areas in Michigan, in Ohio, where they believed John may have taken his children. The FBI, due to the fact that it was such a random and rare case, 3 boys missing at once, the FBI got involved very quickly, and we had the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, were involved, and there were grid searches, hundreds of residents, cadaver dogs, the lot. It was very quick, and it was one of the biggest searches in Michigan history. Morenci, Michigan was the kind of town where everyone knew each other. There was only 2,200 residents, and everyone was heartbroken. They always have been, and they backed this campaign all the way through, trying their hardest to get some kind of justice for these little boys. We've got a campaign reward as well, Popular Live. So it's amazing. Thank you, guys. Now, everyone was absolutely heartbroken about the Thanksgiving disappearance of 3 boys, and the entire community wanted to pitch in to help. For the next week, residents put their lives on hold to search for the boys. If this community could have found these boys with sheer willpower alone, they would have found them and brought them home. Unfortunately, it soon became clear that the story was unlikely to have a happy ending. Authorities were certain that John had killed the boys and then disposed of their bodies early that Friday morning. Megan, thank you so much. Thank you, Megan. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. John, however, refused to cooperate or tell the authorities what had happened. Megs, thank you so much. He insisted he had given the boys to this phantom, Joanne Taylor, and despite the fact police found no proof of her existence, John's sister, Linda Ford, told reporters she believed her brothers and couldn't understand why investigators keep questioning him. I just don't understand this level of delusion. If one of my siblings was supposed to have care of their children and just said, nah, stranger on the internet, took them at that point, I'd be against him. I'd be like, nah, fuck that. Tell these people what you know. Now, Tanya, thank you, Kirst, thank you, Shani. Tanya told detectives she vaguely remembered that John had mentioned helping a couple that had been stranded on the side of the road, but he'd only spoke about it once when it first happened, and he didn't even seem to know a couple's name. So it's likely he's kind of mixed truth and fiction, non-fiction and fiction. And we know this happens a lot, right? People who lie try to mix things in, they get confused, they change their story a lot. And she was pretty sure, Tanya, yes, he did help someone on the side of the road, but he didn't maintain a relationship with these people. That's mad. Now, once police were able to get a warrant, they then searched all of John's email accounts, computers, phones, and they were able to conclusively state that Joanne Taylor did not exist. There had been no emails, no contact with any stranger on the internet. Thank you, Claire, so much. Thank you, everyone, so much for all the support. He had never had a conversation with anyone about the children, about what was going on. He had no conversations with anyone about taking the boys or how the boys were doing, just nothing. Thank you, everyone, for the gifts. I appreciate you so much. Now, on Tuesday, November 30th, thank you, Lozzie, 2010. Thank you, Gino. John was deemed to be well enough to be discharged. Thank you, everyone, for the gifts. All the penny gifts as well, all of it. I'm going to try and get on with the case, but I will thank you all at the end. Everyone's good, thank you, Maya. How are you? So, on Tuesday, November the 30th, 2010, John was deemed well enough to be discharged from the hospital after his unaliving attempt, and he had since then been held in a psychiatric facility, and he was now released from there. Now, as soon as he was released, he was arrested by the FBI and charged with 3 counts of parental kidnapping. Now, after he refused to waive extradition to go back to Michigan, a judge ordered him jailed and set his bail at £3 million. He was sent to the Lucas County Correction Center in Toledo to wait for his formal extradition charging. Formal, not former. When John was in jail, the search for the three boys continued. And there were a few potential sightings that had to kind of been worked and kind of looked into. But investigators were unable to confirm any of them and warned the public not to give up hope, to keep looking, to look in the outhouses, to check their security cameras, to look in plots of land. If you take your dogs for a walk in woods, look there. Look anywhere you could where three boys or three bodies could be. It was clear the officials believed that the boys were dead, but Tanya, the mother, refused to believe this. Like, how can you believe that? How can you just accept that yesterday I was a mother of 3 children, today I have none? On December the 3rd, a week after the boys were last seen, authorities halted the volunteer search for them. Megan, thank you so much. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Tracy. That's so much. Thank you, Megan. An anonymous donor offered £10,000 reward for any information to locate the boys. And John continued to maintain he had not harmed his children. Megan, stop! Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Really, honestly. Don't make me cry. But he refused to say where the boys were. He absolutely refused to say where they were. John's parents visited him while he was in custody and told reporters that they too believed him. Like, this family are fucked, man. I'm sorry, but you've got to, at some point, call your loved one out on bullshit. You have to be able to go, like, this don't make sense. There's no evidence, no proof. Thank you, Ali. Like, at the point where the police searched his, thank you, Megan, so much, honestly. I really, really do appreciate that. At the point where they've searched his email, there's absolutely no communication from anyone. It's all lies. Why would you then just go, yeah, well, we believe him? Like, I know people love family and they love their children, but why would you not? Why would you not be like, nah, sorry? My mum would definitely call me out on this. Like, if this was my situation, my mum absolutely would be like, nah, you're lying. Where's my grandbabies? Like, any grandmothers in here, grandparents, you know you would call out your children if it meant your grandchildren. You just would. Like, honestly, if the police come to you and said there's no evidence, he's saying there's these emails, he's trying to unalive himself if he's done something here, you would absolutely be like, nah, sorry, where's my fucking grandbabies? No matter how much you love your kids, your grandbabies are different. Nanny Kay would turn up with a shovel. That's what happens. Like, she'd be like, where's my grandbabies? That's it. That's my chair, whatever. So John's parents say that they 100% believe him. And although he wouldn't tell them either where his children were located, his mother, Roxanne, had the audacity to tell reporters outside of the hospital that she was proud of her son for taking his children away from their deplorable mother. And she said, yes, the court found her to be the best parent, but I'm absolutely glad that he did this. And I don't need to know where the children are because I trust my son. And I think, enabler. A week later, John decided to waive a former extradition and travel back to Michigan with the police, and judge ordered him to be held on a £30 million bond while awaiting his trial for parental kidnapping. Now, on December the 16th, John finally admitted his story about Joanne Taylor was false. And he now claimed he had given his sons to some secret organisation. A secret organisation had visited his home on Thanksgiving, and he was unable to identify the person, the agent who come to have the children, because they were allegedly hiding their association from the underground. Fucking wild. At the divorce hearing later on, John refused to answer any questions in relation to where his children were, although he continued to insist on their father and their safe. He actually was, because at this time he hadn't been arrested for anything other than parental kidnapping, and he was still taken to the court to kind of do the divorce hearing because they thought something might come out of it. And he's shouting across the room to Tanya, why aren't you wearing your wedding ring, hun? Why aren't you wearing your wedding ring, hun? Over and over again. And she's like, where's my children? Now, despite the fact the investigators had to and tried to prepare Tanya for the worst, she continued to hold out hope that her children were alive. They've looked into it all quite extensively, Stephanie, because you have to rule everything out. She bought them all Christmas presents and planned to wrap them and put them under the tree. And she was quite vocal in the media that she was waiting for a Christmas miracle. Now, 2011 arrived without any movement in the case, and Tanya and John had another divorce hearing on January 28th, where John once again told the judge, the only thing I will tell you is that I will not turn the children over to their mother. He said they are not harmed, they're in a safe location, and he said he had evidence the children were alive. The judge asked to see it, and the investigator said, there is no evidence, you've not shown us anything. And he just said, look, they're safe. That's it. Officials held a press conference on February the 1st of 2011 where they announced that the case of the missing Sketlton Brothers was now a murder investigation. It was a homicide investigation. Although they were still searching for the boys, authorities did not believe they were still alive, and the Morenci police chief admitted he felt there was no chance these boys were safe. I have to agree with him, to be fair. There's too many lies and too many inconsistencies, and nothing makes sense here. Now, John was considered a primary suspect, but the new charges that were filed against him at the time were only to do with the kidnapping. Nobody filed any charges of murder. He had changed his story once again, saying he'd left the boys now with an underground group, Hey Ange, who were called the United Foster Outreach and Underground Sanctuary Group. This man has got a fucking imagination. So the police are like, well, who are they? And he's like, well, they're an underground foster service. And he said, this group had been operating for years to protect children. They protected the children from their mother, and I've given them to United Foster Outreach and Underground Sanctuaries. In late February, John was charged with additional counts of kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment, and his bond was raised to 90 million after the police and the FBI had done loads of digging to find out this group did just not exist. There was no group. They'd never existed. There'd never been one report of a group like that being in existence ever. Now, while John was in prison awaiting trial, he gave telephone interviews to a Detroit television station, but provided no new information. He simply continued to insist that he loved his children and they were safe. Tanya was finally granted divorce from John on June the 2nd, 2011, although the proceedings were somewhat bittersweet. And as she was walking out of the divorce hearing that had all been finalised, John just says, look, Tanya, the boys aren't available to either of us. It's not in my control. Like, they're gone. And in the summer of 2011, the Morenci Police Department teamed up with Toledo television station to produce a PSA, a public service announcement, about the missing Sketlton Brothers. They were hoping to solicit new information that might finally lead to a location of the boys, and this time they offered a reward of $60,000. They asked residents of Michigan and Ohio to conduct any searches on their properties, including any abandoned structures, in case the children had been hidden there. On July the 28th, 2011, John pleaded no contest to 2 charges of unlawful imprisonment of his 3 sons. The plea wasn't an admission of guilt, but no contest just means I've done nothing wrong, but I accept you probably have enough evidence to find me guilty. Hey, Hayley, how are you? Now, he then says he'll plead no contest to unlawful imprisonment as long as the kidnapping charges would be dropped. Hey, Jimmy. The deal didn't prevent the prosecutor from filing any more charges in the future, and the boys' bodies would be found at some point, they hoped, so they could charge him with murder. Now, on September the 15th, 2011, John was sentenced to serve 10 to 15 years in prison. Hey, Emma. Hey, Mama One. He was sentenced to 10 to 15 years on the unlawful imprisonment charges. The judge decided his crime was bad enough and that he should be sentenced to the most serious of that, because they believed at this point he was a murderer, and they thought keeping him in custody all this time would make him at some point come forward with the truth. Now, the sentencing guidelines on that charge alone are, 43 to 86 months in prison. And the judge noticed that 3 children remain unknown and caused untold psychological damage to family members, including their mother, so she did give him the harshest sentence. He then changed his story once again and said he'd never tried to commit suicide. The noose had been for an apparatus he was building. And I just don't know what apparatus would include a noose. He also claimed he didn't actually hand his children over to the organisation, but that a member of the organisation had come to his house in order to stage an intervention and take the children because of how dangerous their mother was. He continued to maintain he had no idea where the boys were and said he would not know the location until he was released from prison. If he was ever released from prison, and if he wasn't, can you spare your time and filings, please? Lou, I'll give you a follow back and you can message me. John remains in prison today. His first parole hearing in 2020 was denied, and he was remained at the Bellamy Creek Correctional Facility in Iowa. And the search for the boys has continued for the last 15 years. That they've never been found. I'm going to go into a minute what the new updates are. We'll talk about that. So detectives have revealed they were able to track much of John's movements in the early hours of Friday, November 28th, by using his cell phone records. His phone was at his home in Morenci at 4:19 a.m, but was on the move by 4:23 a.m. At 5:02, the phone was in the area located to the northeast of the holiday city in Ohio, and the phone was apparently turned off at this point at 5:02 and not turned back on until 6:46 a.m. when the phone was back in Morenci. John disputes that he ever went to Ohio, and he admits his phone was there, but claims he wasn't with the phone. He told police his phone simply reappeared at his house the next morning, and he wasn't sure how it got there or how it got to Ohio on its own. This man he's such a fucking liar. He's got diabetes, but he hasn't got the smarts to actually put together a normal story. Like, how do you know that your phone leaves your bedside table in the night, goes to Ohio? That's very specific that you know that it's gone there, but it wasn't you that took it. It's just mad. Now, I'm going to put up some age-progressed pictures of the boys. It's so sad that he has got loose wires. He's fucking a couple of sandwiches short of a fucking picnic, this guy. These are the age-progressed pictures of all the boys over the years. And for their mum to see they're grown into men. You know, pretty much big boys, 18-year-old boys. Like, it's ridiculous. Okay. I need to tell you something about the story quickly. Now, fiction. I'm going to get onto that place in a second. Okay, so I have to tell you this part because it's very important that we talk about it quickly, because otherwise it's going to seem like I'm covering half a case. So Tanya Zovers, the mother, was a registered sex offender. Okay, it's very important to the case, but we know that she didn't do anything to her sons because they weren't with her at the time. She had sexual relations with a 14-year-old boy in 1998 when she was a full-grown adult. Now, I don't understand how any parent who's a sex offender is raising children anyway, so I struggle with that. I really struggle with it. She pled guilty to previous fourth degree criminal sexual conduct for having sex with a 14-year-old boy in 1998. Their mother. She was 32 years of age and the boy was 14, and they had a full-blown, what she calls relationship, I call it rape. And I'm not really sure how the courts viewed that when given full visitation. But to me, both these parents are, to some explanation, not great people, because I can't back any woman on any kind of register because I would feel absolutely disgusted at a man being on it. Some people have said she was slightly younger than that, and I can't work out her exact age, but it's different reported on live. This is her with the boys, this is her with the boys. So the latest updates are that it's just been around the corner. So in November of 2025, they were ready to release John Sketlton. And at the point, and I'll show you a picture of him actually, because I've got a picture of the boys with it. Oh, this is him here. At the time he was ready to be released, they went to the prison and they actually, so he just completed his sentence for the false imprisonment of the boys, and he was supposed to be released on the 29th of November, and the judge on that day that he was said to be, thank you, G, thank you so much. The day he was due to be released, I'll get my words out, he was charged with 3 counts of murder. So he is now back in a situation where he will not be leaving prison. And he really thought, like, I'll just do my time, I'm going to get out, and we're all going to believe that as soon as he gets out, people are going to go, oh, hello. Hello, they're going to bring your sons back right now. Sorry, that the boys aren't out there to be brought back. So we know that earlier this last year in 2025, the judge finally agreed to announce all boys were declared dead and they weren't still alive. No, stop, G, don't. That'll make me feel really bad. Please don't do that. Look after yourself first, please. So we know at this point that he's like, thank you, Megan, so much. He's unlikely to ever admit what's happened here. And they've spent 15 and a half years searching for these boys and not found anything. My guess is, thank you, Megan, so much. My guess is between 4 and 6 he buried these bodies. Or more likely, oh, brilliant, G. More likely that they were put in some kind of body of water or something because it was very quick and then he was already back in the county. So I believe that he'd probably place them somewhere, maybe like a rock quarry or something like that, where he could just, and I just don't know how you do that to your 3 children. Like these little boys, man, are just so sweet. Number 19 in the competition. Thank you everyone for all your help so much. They're always together. They're always like literally in their camo gear and outside playing. They love rope swings. They love swimming. And I just think like, and I think for the true crime community, when they find out that the mum had had sexual charges with young children who were boys, they started to believe that maybe he had taken them away from the mum for a reason to keep them safe, and maybe they were out there alive somewhere. And I can only hope that, like, I can only hope, like, in the deepest, darkest pits of my mind that perhaps one day these boys are being kept safe somewhere, but it's been too many years now, and the boys would be adults, and they've not come forward. And, you know, I don't understand where else they could be. Thank you, Dawny. I just don't think they were alive, and I think this dad is such a fucking coward. Was that person called Pat My Back? I've got such a simple imagining. I've got such a simple. I wonder that, sorry. They must have conversations, I imagine. Thank you, Megan, so much. Pat My Back. Simple minds. That made me really laugh. Don't even know why. So this was the family's response, the statement, the last thing. The family, including the mum's statement about the boys and the new charges. It's been 15 long years since our 3 boys, Andrew, Alexander and Tanner, went missing. Throughout this time, our family has lived with unimaginable pain, unanswered questions, and the constant hope that one day we might learn the truth about what happened to them. No, I don't blame you. Someone asking you to pat their back all the time. It's a lot, isn't it? I'm not winding an adult, Ella. Today we've been informed that an arrest warrant has been issued for John Sketlton, who has been incarcerated for the past 15 years and was scheduled for release in the next week. This latest development has left us shocked and heartbroken all over again. Our priority has always been and continues to be finding out what happened to the boys. We ask the investigation to be allowed to proceed thoroughly and without interference so that truth may one day come to light. We also ask for our privacy and respect during this incredibly difficult time as we process these devastating updates. We remain deeply grateful to those who have supported us, prayed for us, and kept our boys in their hearts for all these many years. I don't think I've heard of many cases like this where 3 children all at once go missing. I'm just trying to see if there's been any other updates apart from this. So it's all November the 13th that his charges were put up. So we're just waiting to hear, really. I want to see a picture of him now. So this is him now when he was just about to be released. He was going to be released in November and he could have got a job at a Santa mall. Unfortunately, the bastard will be spending, well, unfortunately, spending a lot more time in prison. I just wish he had the fucking wherewithal. And that's how I can tell people like this don't have any, they don't have any remorse. Because surely sitting in a cell for 15 years, you're going to start thinking about your sons. You're going to start thinking like they're out in the dark somewhere. They're out there in the wilderness. Like, I need to do something at this point. You're going to start having questions about, can you just leave them out there? Can you not tell someone? You also, ex-wife even, you've got to be thinking, like, I was married to her for this long. You obviously got married to her after she was a sex offender, to be honest as well, which is odd. Yes, I think he got rid of the boys. Then he tried to kill himself because he's a coward. And then he wanted to just punish her. And I think that he didn't have the heart to go through with it or the stomach. Is it not possible he gave them to a family? Well, they've traced every family member. They don't seem to be coming forward. They at one point were following his mum and dad to see if they ever went to the boys. I think it's more likely. He could definitely do a deal now. I'm hoping these new charges of life imprisonment, and I think detectives in some ways have played this very smart, right? Because if you've done 15 years hard time in an American prison, which is much harder than here, no one's going to like you, by the way, either, because you fucking made your own 3 children disappear. You're going to have a hard time in there. And then, just as you think you're about to be released back into the custody of your family, they're like, hold up. And then you've got to think, like, now I'm going to spend the rest of my life, and I've been thinking I'm getting out. And that's got to fuck with your head enough that if you're going to say something, you're going to say it now. You're going to try and make a deal. Look, give me another 15 years and I'll go and find the bodies. I'll show you where the bodies are. Give me another 10. Sandra's our people. Can we get Sandra back? You're going to start having those questions unless you're really suspicious. What the fuck is going on anymore? Who do I trust? No, I love Sandra. No. So I just don't. I just hope for the deal. That's right. Who said that? Oh, yeah, whoever said the deal thing. The deal thing's very clever. Do you think she's new to I Love Boys? I don't know. It could be very much that he used... oh, you did it by mistake when you read her comment, because it was Sandra that said the comment I liked. It could very well be. Sorry about that, Sandra. Because we don't know what happened, Luli did it by mistake. Because we don't know what happened, I can't really tell you what happened. I can't tell you if he took him out into the middle of nowhere and used a gun. I can't tell you if he pushed him off. I just don't know. I just pray one day that the answers are there. And more so for just the whole community as well. I need to an LP, as I have a specialist military intelligence officer prepared to investigate. I'm not going to be investigating any military intelligence officer. I can tell you that right now. I like my life. I think that's probably above my station, to be fair. Majorly. I'll be honest. You through life? I believe so. Happy watermelon. I believe even if someone Amber, you were looking for 60. If you were looking for, if say for instance you were one of those people that took them because you were like, I'm going to take them for a year or whatever, you serve some jail time, at some point you're going to be really scared that the FBI and everyone are going to find you with these children and you're going to serve the rest. Someone would have come forward. Like, I honestly believe that. I honestly believe if someone was holding the boys, they would be like, nah, sorry, you've got to take these boys now, because it's too on top in there. It's too much. Definitely too much. So that's the case of the missing Sketlton Brothers. I've always found it so upsetting that, as much as her mum did what she did, I still have a sympathy for her as a mother to not know what went on with her kids, and I definitely have a lot of love and respect for those little boys. Thank you, Sky. Thank you so much. No kid should be out there in the wilderness just discarded like trash and no one come looking for them. And I do know the police in this case have looked and looked and looked. And every couple of months I see a different search happening over the border, here, there, everywhere. They've never been able to bring these boys back home, but they have looked.